dad. I'm Jason, I'm Billy's son, most of you know that. It's so weird on a Sunday not sharing action on NFL games. Not even knowing the scores right now is odd. I can't tell you that. Last Sunday was the first Sunday that I wasn't talking about what was happening with him in my whole life. So that was weird. Joanne and I are so grateful to have today and to share memories, and really all the people that reached out to us all week. I love the stories about the shortstop, and most of all, I love the stories about him. Me and my dad, all you had to do was know us for 5 minutes, and you knew how much that we loved each other. He was so many things to so many people for so many years. Burrhead in his school days, or at the YMCA, the local bookie, a place for sports facts and knowledge, Auburn's self-proclaimed voice of truth. But to my family, he was Pappy, and to me, he was my best friend. He dedicated his life to me when my mom died, and I gladly returned the favor. People always said to me, "You're such a good son to him." Listen, he was the best dad. When he could see, he would write me letters and notes of encouragement and love every single day, and I included some of them there. When he couldn't see anymore, I, like everyone else, got loving voicemails. Well, maybe some people didn't get loving voicemails. Mine were loving. In college, every single Friday in the mailroom, I got a huge box care package that he sent from Cases Unlimited of snacks and money. The Boston Globe that we used to drive to Durston's in Syracuse together every Sunday to get. Pens, books, magazines, and notes about how much he loved me. I was a good son because he was such a good dad. He was grateful and loving to me right to the end. For decades, he spent 16 hours a day in a bar room, either his own or after work someone else's bar. He enjoyed real conversation and had a knack to be hilarious and dead serious at the same time. I never met someone who had so many people that he considered to be great friends. I felt like everyone I met, he said, "That's one of my best friends." He must have said that to me 500 times. He loved to reminisce about the old times, about old stories in Auburn, about the people that he collected in his journey of life. The shortstop was a Damon Runyon-esque scene of gambling and laughs, with real characters, from Carl Fee to that lady Nancy who got wedged between the toilet and the wall in the ladies' room that the fire department had to get, to Trish the Dish dancing on the pool table, Paulie Mallon grumbling behind the bar. There was always laughs. Ray Burns and Downtown Freddie, Phil LeGravenese having explosions when my dad would change lines, just to piss him off. And every time a stranger walked in, him nervously saying, "Are you a cop?" The place was Howard Stern's whack pack long before Howard Stern. I don't even have knowledge of the first 15 years. Mostly the shortstop was waves of regulars for generations, many that came through the line today, who came in to escape life's problems for 3 shots for $1 or a 40-cent draft, a cheap bottle or can, or a trip to the back room for a slip of paper and a pencil and to make a bet. I can close my eyes and still see the indelible image of my dad talking to a guy who was placing a bet, calling me Baby Jason at the picnic table with a giant cigar and a box of slips and cash. Obviously, interior decorating was not a consuming passion. Picturing the men's room still makes me shiver. If you remember the men's room there, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
What happened in the men's room?
As a kid, it was like, where do I sit down? It was like, go in the ladies' room. But the shortstop provided quite an education to me to grow up in. I learned the best hamburgers were made with a little garlic salt into giant patties, and they were cooked medium rare. I learned great math skills, correcting all those parley slips at age 8. Makes sense. He said his first bet was around the same age with Denny Ace Collins on an Army-Navy football game. I learned that no matter how much a team lost, they're never due to win. And my dad brought me with him everywhere. And that was always so much fun. SU hoop games, Pearl's half-court shot, we were together. Restaurants, bars, stores, fantasy drafts. Literally, he brought me everywhere. After the last year of the Calcutta in 1985, we ran out the back door of what was then Dominic's restaurant with a large paper bag with $64,000 in it in 1985. And he looked at me and said, Jace, this is the last year we're doing this. I said, why? It was so much fun. He said, it's too big. It did. It got too big, so we stopped doing it. When I was around 16, there was a priest convention at a hotel. Hundreds of priests during one of our amazing dozens of trips to Fenway Park in Boston. He happened to be wearing a black button-up shirt like the one I have on today and black pants, so I talked him into buttoning the shirt all the way up, ripping white paper and making a priest collar. He sat by the door in the lobby for an hour, and every time anybody walked by, he'd loudly say something like, Jesus Christ, these effing people would look at us. It was amazing to watch the looks. In Auburn, we went places, and everywhere we went, everyone loved him and fell all over him. I'm still not sure if it's because people loved him so much or the large wad of money that he had in his pocket, giving everybody $20 tips. Physically, he never complained ever about the hand that people, or the hand that physically he was dealt. From lying in the middle of the shortstop in a lazy boy chair with a PICC line and an antibiotic IV and having customers put the antibiotic in him, to multiple trips to hospitals where he had multiple infections and staph infections and illnesses. He was put in a wheelchair permanently in 2005. He became totally blind in 2007. And let's be honest, he was partially blind for many years before that. He got in a car accident on the corner of Seymour and Cross Street twice. He totaled the car 20 years apart on the same corner. You'd think he wouldn't drive to that corner again. One time at the DMV, Wormy Tarby stood with him and read the eye chart so he could get his license renewed. Do you remember that? He couldn't even see where the eye chart was. Wormy's like, W, E, and my dad repeats what Wormy's telling him in his ear, and then he got his driver's license renewed. So honestly, he was blind long before he was blind. One night he came home, he was driving, we lived on North Street, he came home from the ground round, he said, Jace, I think the car's on fire. I looked out the window, the car was literally on fire. I called the fire department, and they had to, the Plymouth Turismo that was my mom's car, burned in our driveway because he rocked it in the snowbank until it started on fire.
What?
Honestly, wheelchair, totally blind by 07, literally confined to a bed the last few years. He never, ever, ever griped about his physical condition. He was always so happy and grateful. At the point where his health dictated it, he left the bar rooms, and his new social life became the back of my house on Kearney Ave. How lucky were Joanna and I to selfishly have this wonderful man all to us. He loved Joanna so much and was so happy to be mothered again. His conversations at night with her were his favorite part of the day. He wanted to know every second of what my kids did. He was always such a great listener, an important skill that I try hard as a teacher to duplicate, and never injected a one-up like most people do into a story. He simply listened, a lesson for us all. He was always positive and only gave constructive advice when it was requested. For us, Billy Kufs was so easy to talk to. Once we brought our children into his life, that became his world. He constantly said every single day how grateful he was for this family. I'd say they're your family too, Pappy. And he spent his time in his bedroom begging for our attention, yelling, yo, when the Red Sox or a fantasy player hit a home run, Billy scrambling to see what happened, or yelling the names Billy, Billy, Carly, 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 Ollie, 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 until my kids finally came down to give him attention that he was craving. It was in the last 10 years, until recently when his health disallowed it, that he replaced going out to calling people. He was blind, but had literally 1,000 phone numbers memorized and loved to leave silly, or angry political, or sweet voicemails to everyone, not just me. I'm sure some people in this room, people told me in the line about his voicemails. Now, when I said he never complained about his situation, he absolutely did complain about food. Exotic, specific foods. He begged me for vermicelli, not spaghetti, not angel hair, vermicelli with garlic and oil literally the week before he died. KFC coleslaw, no other coleslaw. Lasca's prime rib, the fatty end cup. McDonald's big breakfast. Whopper, no pickle, no onion. Cooked cabbage, which smelled up our house for a week. Tops pasta salad. 6 cans of Diet Coke every day. Between that and those diabetic feet that I was constantly buying Silveride and iodine and ointment and gauze and tape and wrapping literally 2 or 3 times a day for 20 years, this is honestly the major reason why my family is like so deeply in debt. For a guy that lived rich, and people are always like, where's the money buried? I promise you, there's no money buried. He died penniless. If he had a penny, I was paying for another mystery audio book, or buying a fantasy baseball league, or most of all, I was buying him exotic food. He wrote and wrote like he knew that he was going blind and running out of time. Politics were such a passion for him. I found notebook after notebook and clipping after clipping of his writing, and I cut a lot of that up and put it on. I have a collage out there of all of like things I found and little. It was mostly cliches and idioms that he remembered or heard or made up. Things like, it's bad to be talked about, but much worse to be not talked about, which was a motto that he lived by. Or also, I read, Gutenberg made everyone a reader, Xerox made everyone a publisher, I want to make everyone a conservative. And I read this week, I never even heard him say this before, but I read him and brought a tear to my eye. He said, I get the most upset at Jason when he acts just like me. All these were in the notebooks I rediscovered this week to make that collage. It was mostly things like, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink, or you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, or if Bill Clinton speaks in the woods and no one hears him, is he still a liar? You're far right or you're far wrong, or pick battles big enough to matter, but small enough to win, which was another motto that he lived by. Most of them have secondary meanings. Many I use in my classroom without even realizing it, thanks to him. Well, not the Bill Clinton one, but he made jingles and songs up and loved to sing them just to get reactions out of people. Make the world a better place, punch a liberal in the face. He would be so happy that the week he died, he took John Conyers and Elijah Cummings with him. He would have been thrilled to hear that. Look it up, they both died right with it. We all know he was more bark than bite, though. He begged to be put in those Auburn dialogue circles on that social justice task force. And I would wheel him into these meetings with Auburn's socialites and elites and progressives and liberals, and a collective gasp would enter the room when I wheeled him in. Some people would leave and would not even stay because he was at the meeting. I'd sit outside occasionally, and I'd beam with pride because I would hear him inject his diversity of thought eloquently and never back down, somehow maintaining decorum. By the end, the other members that didn't quit ended up being best of friends. I came home one day, he had the Ayman, this Muslim guy, in our living room on the couch, this guy that had hated him evidently a few months earlier in the newspaper, and they're in the living room on the couch, and the guy's drinking a Diet Coke, and they're laughing in my living room. So he ended up, all these supposed enemies ended up being best of friends. He managed to win people over when they stayed to listen to him. His brains and wit made it all just make sense. For me and my family, every day was a quiz. His mental math was incredible up to the day he died. His mind didn't slip. He would lie in bed and randomly tell me things like, strengths is the longest word in the English language with one vowel, or did you know Alaska's coastline's longer than the other states combined, or some other random combination of letters and numbers that fascinated him. For me as a child and my children, every moment with their pappy was an education complete with quizzes and trivia. He could add numbers quickly and remembered stats and facts better than anyone I've ever met. In a 1991 article about his Holiday Inn sports trivia team, renowned Finger Lakes artist John Francis McCarthy described him as Professor Kufs and said he was a big, generous, enigmatic, self-deprecating man with a wry sense of humor and a good firm handshake. The kind of guy you'd see guarding an icebox in a Hitchcock movie. People liked him. His end years were different from that arm-wrestling, barrel-chested, strong, gregarious, and generous guy booking at the shortstop, or the media loudmouth conservative from the columns of the TV show. I would wake up and tiptoe to his bedroom, knowing that if he was breathing, it was a good start to my day. And if Dixieland music was blaring, it was a great start to my day. The past few years, he was a proud and sometimes hungry pappy who loved those 5 voices in my house. He literally lived for them. He loved baseball to the end and wanted to talk to me right up to his last night on earth. But stories about my wife and children brought him the greatest joy. There are some important life lessons about these years. One is that it's easy to say, well, they're better off, they're suffering, or easy for us to say that when we're not the ones lying in that position. This man did not want to die. He loved his life, even if it appeared to some medical folks and do-gooders that it was no way to live. It was his life. And lying in the bed was fine if he had mystery books, French fries, Diet Coke, and a ball game on the radio. The other lesson is that as a society, we don't devote enough time advocating for the elderly. It was my plight, just as it was my grandfather Herm Kufs' plight in his early years, and I now see why. I struggled in my journey advocating for my dad and had some horrific experiences locally. I cannot imagine what it's like for older people without me fighting for them. The last lesson is this: many of you listening might face a similar end game with someone that you love. Keeping my dad in our house with us was a tremendous challenge for us, but the pros outweighed the cons times 1,000. The lessons he taught me, my wife, and most importantly my children, on how to live, how to deal with adversity and love, we would not change for the world. We miss him so much, and our house has an emptiness without his voice. But we are so grateful to have everything he gave us and cannot wait until some sunny day when we'll meet again. Thank you.